Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching, however you're watching. This is Quantum of History. I am your host, Donnie Walsh, and welcome into another episode. Today we're going to be talking about the Ndrangheta, Italy's most secret, most clandestine, worth a whole bunch of money criminal organization, just like Spectre was. And what set Spectre apart from other organizations is that they worked in secrecy. And I didn't really even know who the Ndrangheta was until I got told about him. And then you can start to see him become more famous. You're seeing it in, if you haven't checked out Amazon Prime 000, they basically, I've done Los Zetas before. They also are doing the Ndrangheta. They don't ever come out and say it, but that's what they're supposed to do. So it's going to be an interesting topic. So if you haven't seen those, if you haven't seen Spectre, if you haven't seen 000, listen in about the real life, about what these plot lines are actually based upon, the organization that they are, and you'll enjoy the movies even better. Without further ado, let's just get right into the topic, the Ndrangheta. Now, like the movie or not, the idea of a criminal organization, a secret organization running a multitude of criminal aspects of society makes for riveting storytelling. In what may seem like a fabrication of reality, there is such an organization, secret organization that's existed since around 1880. The Ndrangheta is that such organization. This little-known organization has worked in secrecy as they have amassed a enormous amount of wealth, power, political influence, and there's a growing mythology about them. It's estimated that in 2013, the Ndrangheta activities accounted for 3% of Italy's GDP, nearly $60 billion. Their operation has spread all throughout Europe, into South America, into Australia. It's a truly worldwide organization. It's a truly worldwide criminal organization with their tentacles in a variety of different fields. So how did the Ndrangheta amass a massive amount of wealth, build this amount of political power, while still maintaining their secrecy? Criminal organizations are nothing new. I mean, organizations like the mafia, Cosa Nostra, the mob, Crips, Bloods, BGF have all found their way into everyday lexicon. Hollywood movies, TV shows, countless books. In Italy, Cosa Nostra is the most famous of organized crimes, criminal organizations. Crips and Bloods, they wear flags, they rap about being gang members, they're on Instagram Live smoking weed, bragging about being Bloods and Crips, brag about their gang affiliation ad nauseum. Cosa Nostra is based in Sicily, and they're the organization most closely associated with being mafia, right? They're always in the news. They've suffered failings with informants. Their businesses go public. A lot has been known about them. Italy has another criminal organization, the Camorra. They're based in Campania region, more along the lines of like a franchise. They're more of an umbrella organization with smaller sects of gangs, as opposed to a secret organization sworn to secrecy, centralized. All these groups have made headlines, and they're well known worldwide. But what made Spectre so effective was that they did so with their far-reaching tentacles in all aspects of society. They did it in secrecy. And the only organization in the world that can compare in scale and in clandestine nature is the Ndrangheta. So how did the Ndrangheta amass this amount of wealth while maintaining their secrecy? Now, the exact origin of the Ndrangheta is unknown. It's approximated that they began around 1880. The Cosa Nostra and the Camorra were like 20 years before that. Their histories are kind of more well documented. Now, the Ndrangheta started in Calabria, which is the toe of Italy's boot. Like many other criminal enterprises, the idea of the Ndrangheta started within Italy's prisons. Much like MS-13 began with El Salvadorians learning gang life from Los Angeles gangs in the prisons, and then morphing it into their own brand once they got back to El Salvador, the Ndrangheta did the same in the late 19th century in southern Italy, as criminals banded together in prison and came up with their own codes, mores for this newly formed gang. Once out of prison, they returned back to Calabria. Calabria is far behind Sicily and Naples and much of the rest of Italy. Calabria is kind of economically backwards and does not have the political prowess like many other areas in Italy does. As this area has been mainly forgotten about by the Italian government, it has become the perfect breeding ground for what some consider the most powerful criminal organization. I don't even know why I'm reading about Italy and going like this, in the world. In the beginning, the Ndrangheta made their living on cattle rings. They would extort farmers for money and their status. Once their clout began to grow, as did the wealth, they made political deals with politicians to affect elections and maintain political prowess. This was happening simultaneously in New York with things like Boss Tweed and his crew. And as society evolved, the opportunities for criminal organization evolved too. In the fight against the Ndrangheta, the way of many burgeoning police departments did, what they would do is the heads of the Ndrangheta would be allowed to operate freely in exchange for information on the lower level members of the Ndrangheta. This was a way that politicians could show they were fighting crime while also maintaining their symbiotic criminal relationship with the Ndrangheta. Now, the way the Ndrangheta do this while maintaining their secrecy and to keep informants out and not have to deal with that, they have two statuses members. First being Societe Maggiore, or major society. These are the elites of the organization. These members have proven through trials, ordeals, maybe even gone to prison, they've shown their loyalty, and their loyalty is unquestioned. These are the ones that know the far-reaching of the tentacles of the Ndrangheta. The other sect are the Societe Minore, or Society Minor. While still sworn to secrecy and privy to the perks of being within the Ndrangheta, they don't know the elite, the top end, the high-end deals that go on. And the influence within worldwide politicians and organizations is not known to Societe Minore members. The Ndrangheta is also obsessed with their rituals and their history. The initiations involve several different rituals. There's even one where they bleed into a picture of St. Michael, set the picture of St. Michael on fire, and then pass it around to other members. Their codes are not taken lightly. In one story, a Ndrangheta member shot his sister in the face because she had gotten pregnant from a police officer. She was married to another Ndrangheta member, had an affair, and got pregnant. After shooting her in the face, he just turned himself in because it was part of an honor killing. It was part of the code. Now, while these traditions have stayed the same, the business around it has not. Around the 1950s, Italy had an economic renaissance as it was building from World War II. The Ndrangheta took advantage of this, using their political access and their intimidation techniques to secure lucrative construction contracts. In the face of competition, violence and extortion was used to combat any groups that were attempting to take back what the Ndrangheta had gained. Major highway contracts went to undeserving contractors with ties to the Ndrangheta. Some of these things still are unfinished today. An example of this is the A3 highway. The Ndrangheta since it started, has siphoned billions of dollars of taxpayers' dollars for this project. The results have been poorly built, poorly maintained, tunnels, roadways, bridges, illogically placed routes. It remains a blight, but the corruption and the reaches of the Ndrangheta and their tentacles kind of prevent anything from being changed. It's still in their hands. The Ndrangheta ramped up their kidnapping branch of their organization around the 1960s and the 1970s. The most famous of these was John Paul Getty III. In this particular instance, the Ndrangheta mailed a piece of Getty's ear to his family. This act has been replicated in movies, TVs, even spoofed in comedies. It's estimated that between 1969 and 1988, 71 people have been kidnapped and never returned alive. Despite having even paid portions of the ransom, the violence and the wealth of the organization grew rapidly during this time period. And the Ndrangheta, also, they meet in a very Bond villain type lair in the mountains of Aspromonte. Inside here lies the sanctuary of Santa Maria de Porsi, or Our Lady of the Mountain. It was built in 1144 at the bottom of a gorge. It is here that thousands of Catholics convene every September to pay homage to the Virgin Mary, also the Greek goddess Persephone. But the most powerful heads of the Ndrangheta meet here. And it really is something straight out of Thunderball or Spectre. They meet here and they discuss any house quarrels and they resolve them there. They discuss future dealings the organization may have as it relates to commerce, bribes, political backing, and many other highly important topics that the Ndrangheta have to face. In this time, Ndrangheta was run by a very small few that maintained their stability for decades. This began to change as conflict amongst the highest-ranking members grew. Eventually, tensions boiled over, and from 1974 to 1977, a war broke out, and it claimed over 200 Ndrangheta members' lives. What came out of this was the creation of Mama Santissima, or Holy Mother sect. This was the elite of the elite. Okay, this allowed the Ndrangheta to get their highest offices of prestige in Italy, from judges to politicians to CEOs to police chiefs. Anyone with ultimate prestige, the Ndranghetas had their tentacles in everything. By 1980s, they had gotten into drug trafficking business, and they had cut out Cosa Nostra to become Europe's most prolific cocaine distributor. With the Ndrangheta having deep ties in South America, they have flourished in the drug game as Cosa Nostra. Cosa Nostra had too many leaks, and they got too much press, and had too many informants, and they got prosecuted too much. And the South American government didn't want to deal with it. The South American cartels didn't want to deal with it anymore. So it is believed that the Ndrangheta have over 400 key operatives in 30 countries. These key operatives run different aspects of the business, much the way Spectre is depicted. Those 400 operatives oversee nearly 60,000 people that have either direct ties or a little ties to Ndrangheta business. Again, it is estimated from 2013 that 2.9 billion euros were from embezzlement, 2.4 billion from gambling, 1.3 billion from arms, 1 billion from prostitution, counterfeiting, smuggling, all these other things. And a new money order that the Ndrangheta has been is disposing of toxic waste. So companies with environmental conscious restrictions have dealt with the rising cost of disposing toxic waste. What the Ndrangheta was able to do is procure dealings with places like Somalia. In Somalia, the Ndrangheta will trade weapons to Somalian entities in exchange for giving them a place to bury shiploads of toxic waste. So the companies will pay the Ndrangheta millions of dollars to dispose of these chemicals, which is still a huge cost saving to the companies because it's a very expensive business. So on January 13th, 2021, Italy embarked on one of the largest criminal prosecutions of all time. 320 Ndrangheta suspected members and their families and their associates face hundreds of charges. These charges include extortion, drug trafficking, theft, and numerous other charges. While Cosa Nostra faced charges like this, this is the first time really in their nearly 150-year history that the Ndrangheta have dealt with opposition like this. Most of the accused members are lawyers, they're businessmen, they're accountants, they're politicians, police officers. I mean, these 320 members, while are substantial, are still not considered anywhere near the top. This is just mid-level. So while this will make quite a show, the Ndrangheta have proven that their tentacles run to the highest areas of society. And it is hard to see a way in which this could ever be eliminated with how ingrained in world economics and criminality the Ndrangheta is involved. And much like Spectre, they have people everywhere.
The thing you should know about us is that we have people everywhere. Am I right?
So I just thought that was a really, really interesting topic to go into. They're a really fascinating organization. Again, it's one thing to be a criminal organization and chirp all day, and like I said, I use the Crips and Bloods kind of a thing because they're constantly. How can you be a gang? I've never seen a group that wants to be known that they're gang members so much. It doesn't make any sense. Why do you want all law enforcement, to know that you're not doing good business and you're not going to get? That's why Ndrangheta is the cocaine dealers, because they know how to shut the F up, But it's amazing. I hadn't ever heard of them. $60 billion a year in 2013. That's huge. And there's a line in the show 000 where he says the dirty secret to all this is that the world needs us. And it's true. I mean, that's a huge amount of profit, money, and those 60,000 jobs that they create, they're not necessarily all criminally involved. I mean, a lot of those are legit businesses that are being held under the umbrella of a criminal organization. I mean, the drug trade and all this other stuff, that's a huge business. And I don't think people realize how important that is to the world economy. You know, you kind of think of it as illegal and not good, but think about the billions of dollars that changes hands throughout the world economy through the use of drugs. I mean, a lot of people are very rich, and a lot of people are still enjoying the fruits of that. Whether it's, you want to talk about the prison industrial complex, okay, you want to get into that. There's a lot of jobs based on fighting drugs. There are a lot of jobs selling drugs, using drugs. There's also a lot of business treating people who have drug uses, being counselors, methadone, police, prisons. There, judges, there's a whole industrial complex that makes a very lot of money on this drug trade. So, it's something I kind of have thought about in my own mind, and it's not always, it's kind of abstract to think about, but really, the world economy needs drugs. I mean, I'm sure that there would be things to replace it, but it's a huge part of the thing. So, the Ndrangheta, and for all it is, you're starting to see they're becoming more and more known. Again, like things like 000, which they don't explicitly say it's the Ndrangheta, but that's what it is. There's also a member that had a YouTube cooking show who was on the run for years, and got caught because he wanted to do a cooking show on YouTube. So he was in hiding, and then they found this YouTube cooking show, and then they were able to track him through, I'm sure, IP logins and stuff like that. But it's just a really interesting topic. So again, if you're going to be a criminal, the best way to be a criminal is to not be loud about it. They show stories about the heads of the Ndgrangheta, the really, really rich heads. They live on the outside, it looks like a shack. All their houses are not extravagant mansions like you see in Mexican cartels or something like that. They are pretty much shacks, but when you walk in, it's opulence. I mean, when you walk through the door, that's where they spend their money, in opulence and all the other stuff. But on the outside, you can't tell, and they're not driving Maseratis. Anyways, this was a great topic, and if you haven't, like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I'm just going to let Little Man tell you what you have to do. Little Man, what do they have to do?
Like what you saw, then hit that subscribe button. Comment down below, and leave a like, and hit that subscribe button. Why are you not hitting that subscribe button?